What is up, friends? It is Crim, and another week means another new beta build. Blizzard is still steadily plugging away at the balance of everything in the Shadowlands beta, and this week was no different. The Soulbind trees all saw a reshuffle, meaning that all of the cool abilities that you got much later on in the tree have now moved up and you get them much earlier than you previously would. Rogues saw some tuning to their Covenant abilities, but the main theme of this week's build was definitely Conduit Tuning. Not a single class was spared, and there was buffs and nerfs galore, and even some reworks. So let's go straight ahead and look at what this meant for us rogues. Let's start with the Covenant ability tuning. Kyrion's Echoing Reprimand saw a small nerf to its damage, with the attack power coefficient going down to 110% from 135. This means that when you use the ability, it's just going to deal a bit less damage than before, but it also now gives 2 combo points down from 3, which is another very small nerf. Venthyre's Flagellation, on the other hand, saw a small buff to the damage that the lashes deal, with that attack power coefficient going up to 6, up from 5%. The debuff it applies to your target now also lasts 20 seconds, down from 45 seconds, so this means that the functionality is now pretty much exactly the same as the Ashvane's Razor Coral trinket that you could get from the Eternal Palace raid. The main difference, of course, being that that trinket gave you critical strike rating, where this gives you haste. The maximum haste that you can get from cleansing the torment on your target has been reduced to 15%, down from 20%. The associated Conduit Flagellation scars has also been changed, and it now makes the initial lashes hit an additional 2 times, with the damage increased to 50% up from 12, which is a pretty decent buff. The Necrolord's Serrated Bone Spike ability saw no changes, but that particular Conduit did see change. It makes the bleed that the Bone Spike applies have an extra chance of ticking a second time, and where before this was 3%, this latest change now sees it go up to 30%, a pretty decent buff, especially in AoE. The most interesting change though came to Nightface's Sepsis ability. When this particular dot lasts the full duration, previously it used to give you a free vanish, something that you couldn't control, and especially in solo content was kind of more than a nuisance than it was helpful. However, it has now been changed to give you a free use of any stealth ability, which in most cases will probably just be a free ambush. It also now awards a single combo point. This particular conduit was also changed, and the extra damage that the dot deals has been increased to 80%, up from 50%. Though at rank 15, the extra damage is pretty much similar, so it just scales a little bit slower, but gives you more oomph when you first start out. So we've already seen some changes to the conduits that are specific to Covenant abilities, but let's have a closer look at the ones that are spec specific instead. And as always, we'll start with Assassination. The Lethal Poisons conduit, which increased the instant damage of your lethal poisons, saw a pretty sizable nerf, reducing the damage it deals to 10%, down from 30%. But despite this sizable nerf, it is currently still one of the stronger conduits. In a similar vein, the Maim Mangle conduit saw the bonus damage on Mutilate reduced to 9%, down from 20%. Poisoned Catar, on the other hand, saw a sort of semi-rework. The instant damage that the Fan of Knives deals saw a small nerf, decreasing that to 7%, down from 8%, but it no longer gives you increased poison application chance, and instead gives you a 5% flat increased critical strike chance, which is probably a decent buff and has some good synergy with the Seal Fate passive that Assassination has. Most interesting was the well-placed Steel Conduit rework though, where before it used to increase the damage of your shiv by 100% on bleeding targets. This had particularly great synergy with the newly reworked Tiny Toxic Blade Legendary, which increased the damage of shiv by 350%. Both of these combined could make for some pretty stupid OP things. This has now been reworked to instead increase the nature damage that you do when you use shiv by 10%, which is again a pretty decent buff and probably makes it one of the better picks for Assassination conduits. Outlaw saw some pretty decent reshuffle in power level as well with these conduit changes. The Ambidexterity conduit, which increases the proc chance of your mastery whenever Blade Flurry is active, saw this additional chance decreased to 3%, down from 10%, which was a pretty sizable nerf. The Count the Odds Conduit, on the other hand, which has a chance of giving you an extra Roll the Bones enhancement for 5 seconds, had its proc chance increased to 15% up from 7, which was a pretty good buff and makes it probably one of the better Outlaw Conduits at the moment. The most interesting out of this Outlaw lot was probably Slate of Hand Changes. Before, this had a chance of resetting the cooldown of your Roll the Bones, which was pretty useless with the high energy cost of Roll the Bones. It now, however, has a 12% chance of instead granting you an additional Roll the Bones match, which makes it pretty powerful. The Triple Threat Conduit had its proc chance for the extra Sinister Strike reduced to 9% down from 20, but it's still pretty powerful and is probably sort of on par with Sleight of Hand. Subtlety was the only rogue spec to see changes to only 3 of its conduits rather than all 4. The Planned Execution Conduit, which increases your crit chance while in Symbols of Death, had this crit chance reduced to 4% down from 6. However, it is now one of the better Subtlety rogue conduits because of the nerfs to the other ones. The Perforated Veins Conduit, which used to increase your Backstab or Gloomblade damage whenever you use Shadow Strike by 30% and it stacked up to 3 times, has now been changed to stack up to 6 times. But for every use of Shadow Strike now only increases the damage by an extra 18% instead. The most important change, however, was to the Deeper Daggers Conduit, one of the most problematic conduits across all 3 rogue specs. It used to increase the shadow damage you dealt by 30% for 5 seconds after you used Eviscerate or Shadow Vault, or the now renamed Black Powder. This used to have synergy with literally every source of shadow damage in the game, including the likes of trinkets, potions and enchants. It has now been changed to only increase your shadow damage by 8%, but it now lasts for 8 seconds. However, this is still a pretty sizable nerf and has knocked it way down in the pecking order of powerful rogue conduits. However, this may all change once again by the time next week's beta build comes around, so make sure you are subscribed and I'll keep you guys up to date. I'm personally most excited by the Outlaw Conduit changes and the added emphasis on Roll the Bones, even though I know not everyone enjoys Roll the Bones as much. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, leave a like while you're there, and follow me on my stream twitch.tv/CrimWow, and you can now also find me on Twitter at Crim_IRL. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video.